running a business, yes. Um,
Hmm.
but people don't. If I say that, then people will be quick to say, "Oh, the church is like a business." Well, there are business principles to it
Yeah.
in order for it to survive. And you see, like now in times like this, it's more than just preaching and teaching. You need to have a business mind to adapt to the times that you're in, man.
Hmm.
That's how you survive this thing, bro.
We live now. I'm away from a rounduppers to come on here, brother Swan. Where it takes a few minutes for the system to kind of get cranked up.
No worries.
You got about 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes maybe?
Yep.
All right. Y'all doing your thing at service. I didn't even feel like I mean, the way you're handling it, it was an enjoyable service. I mean, you can watch it right there at home, interact with. I enjoyed it.
That's you know what's gonna be the hardest part, Chris, is when we can come back. Because I think what we're offering is a product that is so convenient now, right? That
Mhm.
we might have to say, okay, y'all need to come back now. Because people gonna be used to it, man. And that's the other side of it. But right now, when you're in survival mode,
Mhm.
you just gotta make the offering very good and compelling enough for people to keep coming back. Man.
There's
And they keep
something.
in, and they keep in mind too, Chris. On Sunday mornings, everybody's streaming now. So man, you could actually leave our service, go somewhere else, and watch somebody else's stuff, man. You
Yeah,
know,
like that.
just like
Just
that,
like that. Wow.
just like that, man. So,
Who would have
and not
thought?
just people in Newport News, people everywhere.
Hmm.
Right? So if you wanted to watch Jake's, you could cut us off and go watch Jake's. I mean,
That's a big
it's that's where we are, bro.
rounduppers. Thanks for joining us tonight. Not only am I interested in talking about business and entrepreneurship at this time in my life and in the economic and social economic climate that we're in, I think that is important for me coming up. The church was just a big part of my life and is today. And I just wanted to share with my rounduppers. I know you guys kind of have some of the same views, some of the same philosophies, ideologies that I do. And I just got a million questions in my mind that I'm just concerned for my churches, not only for my business, my community, but I'm like, the church is a staple in my life and it's a pillar in the community. And I just want to hear from the horse's mouth to kind of see how are our churches holding up? What does it look like behind closed doors? What are the thoughts behind with the leaders inside? So I reached out to Pastor Swan from Ivy Baptist, and he agreed to join us tonight to kind of share with us some of the stuff that's going on. Pastor Swan, how you doing, bro?
Chris, I'm doing well, man. Thank you for having me back. I enjoyed last time, man.
Yeah, we did have a good time, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So good to be back. First of all, is your family safe? Everybody good, man? You practicing social distancing and all that stuff, man?
Social distancing, yes, we are going a little crazy behind these doors, but we're getting along. We're getting along.
Telling you, you're gonna learn a lot about your family over this over this time, man. I tell you. So things that sometimes we take for granted, you're gonna learn a lot about your kids and your wife, man. So
I'm
I
seeing
know you're
that.
gonna do well. You'll be fine.
How about you? How you coming along with the fam?
Good, man. This was the first year our daughter went off to school, so she was at
Okay.
George Mason. So we were in that adjustment, and luckily for us, man, she came home a little early. Now, I don't think for her, she, I think she would have preferred to stay a
No
little bit longer.
doubt.
But for us, man, it's great having her back. And again, just trying to make the most of the time that we have. We bought a lot of board games, man. So I don't know if you play games. We got Connect Four and Monopoly and Uno, and got a deck of cards. Go play some spades. So, I mean,
Oh my goodness.
we'll make the most of it, man.
Okay.
We got older kids than you guys, so it's a little bit different, man.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. The
Yeah,
dynamic is different.
dynamics a little different, man. They tend to go off into their rooms too. They like their space, their little bit of independence. So
Lord. Oh man.
you don't have that yet. You still daddy, and then you got one coming. So I mean, you're in that phase of, but enjoy it, man. Because I'm telling you, once they get independent, off they go, man.
I keep hearing that, brother. I keep
Yeah,
hearing that.
yeah. So
How you
just
holding up though, man? I mean, I feel like you so much of a I don't want to call it a responsibility. I mean, how do you deal with this stuff when at nighttime when you're laying your head down? What is going on through your mind, bro?
Well, no question, it's been a stressful time, because I think for most people, yourself included, there was really no prep time for this. You know, if there's a hurricane or there's a storm, usually a few days out, right? But with the coronavirus, it happened all so fast, and literally you go from seeing people in your building to now nobody's there, and you're trying to figure out how are you going to do what you do and still stay connected. So there are a lot of questions that you have to answer, and how are you going to do business? And in my case, the business is the gospel. How will the gospel continue to spread? How will the mission of the church continue to function and operate, but in a different way? And that's what we've been thinking about, man, and strategizing for the last 2 weeks.
Wow. So as things were unrolling, did you give me a kind of a play-by-play as we were approaching, I guess, end of February, 1st of March? I don't watch the news. I make it a habit not to, so I really wasn't fully aware of what was happening, but no doubt you have to have a pulse, if not you, a team to kind of say, okay, this is what's coming, where we might have to need to go.
Yeah, so I'll take you to the second Sunday in March. That was the last time we had a worship service. And even in that service, we knew coronavirus was around, but it was still very small in our country and in our area. So I remember in our service, I said, hey, we need to practice. You can't hug people. You got to give them an air hug. And
you're big on that too, bro.
Yeah,
you're big on that.
I'm big on hugs and fellowship. Yeah. So that was that Sunday. And then the following Sunday, I'm still prepared to have service, but the virus had spread so quickly from that last Sunday, second Sunday in March, to now we're in the third Sunday in March. And I'm literally still ready to go in. And 6 o'clock Saturday night, I see a report on CNN that says that people can spread the virus with no known symptoms.
Oh, wow.
And when I saw that, I was like, there's no way we can do church now, because I could have it and not know it. You could have it and not know it.
Gotcha.
And we could literally spread it to another senior in our church, which that population is the most impacted by all this. Most of us will be fine if we got it. But for those who are elderly, who have pre-existing conditions, which there is a good percentage of our congregation that's in that category.
Yeah.
You're now looking at a death rate that is 10 times higher than the flu.
Gotcha.
So when you see that, I decided 6 o'clock Saturday night to cancel our service, man.
Wow,
and so
man.
At that point, we had to shift and go into how are we going to do everything online, literally less than 24 hours before we went live. So we did it that Sunday, and then the past Sunday we did it again. And it was, we made improvements, and we're going to make improvements again. And so, I'm looking at this from a long-term perspective, Chris, and I don't see where this is going to end anytime soon. I know what the president said. Hey, I want to make sure that people are in churches by Easter, which is April the 12th. But the medical professionals, the healthcare professionals are saying it may be longer than that. So in my mind, I'm preparing to go until at least May in this format.
Wow. Is this format, brother, I feel like money greases the wheels, and I just want to I'm going to be open as much as I can. Is this format impacting the stability? I'm thinking about just Easter. For me, I've never missed an Easter Sunday. It's just a part of life. So I'm like, Easter, so much of a revenue generator for the community. I can only imagine what it is for the church.
Yeah, so I would tell you that let me speak on our church, and then I'll speak on churches in general. So the one saving grace for us is that 2 years ago we moved to online giving.
Okay.
And during that time, in the past 2 years, we've moved from online giving to being, hey, this is nice, to really online giving now even before coronavirus started, was the number one way in which we receive revenue for the church.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
that in and of itself
Wow.
has helped us tremendously. That really the majority of our congregation hasn't had to change their habits at all.
Wow.
Now, we still do have a large percentage of our church who give by cash and by check in the offering basket.
That's
But we
me.
did
Yeah. I always do that.
but
Yeah.
we did a big push to say to people before we went online, hey, really look at giving through the app, because really the app, it only takes 30 seconds to give that way. Once you set it up and do it one time, it only takes 30 seconds to do. So a lot of people did move from traditional forms of giving to giving online. So that has helped us. So we have taken a dip, as most churches have, but not nearly. We haven't fallen off the cliff by any means. And
Good.
we're very encouraged by what we have seen the last 2 weeks being completely online.
Nice.
Now,
Nice.
having said that, for the churches who were not prepared, for the churches who had not used technology the way we have, for the churches who weren't necessarily doing Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or having an app or a website that really allowed people to give that way, those churches are feeling it pretty significantly right now. And then you think about, let's say, the rural churches, the country churches that, people still don't use technology like that. They are feeling it. So what a lot of churches are doing is being creative in terms of how to get people to the church, but still maintain distance. So, for example, in Virginia, because I know people are watching us from different states, in Virginia, we're not a shelter-in-place state as of yet, but the limit is 10 people at a time.
Okay.
Right? So you can't have more than 10 people. But what some churches are doing is doing what's called drive-in services, where the members drive to the church, the pastor and the musicians and the praise team is outside. So the service is in the parking lot, and the pastor will have a podium or a lectern and preach from the lectern outside. The members drive in, stay in their cars. Nobody gets out their car. You would have an offering time. An usher will come to the car and you would drop off your offering that way. People can still see each other through the cars. So what's happening, man, is that churches are really becoming creative in how they are presenting the gospel. And for me, that's a good thing. Anytime you can see creative minds and the church thinking differently, you have a lot of churches who would never have considered doing Facebook Live, who now have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But for those who were adverse to it before, you don't have any choice now. If you're not doing something online right now or connecting to your members some kind of way, you're hurting pretty bad right now, man.
I bet. I can imagine. I mean,
yeah.
Swan, I'm thinking about the business. I mean, just from the businesses that are just going. I mean, I got a friend that's got a print shop. He has not had an order in 2 weeks. That's just one, little drop in our economic system. But I'm like, it all trickles down.
It does, and that also impacts the church. So, if the membership isn't working, then what can they give?
Yeah.
Right. So it's layers to this. So even if your online giving is right and you're doing it successfully, which was what we're trying to do, if you got a percentage of your congregation that's been laid off or working less hours, it's still going to impact you in some way, man. So it goes back to what works for churches and what works for your personal pocketbook is how you manage your finances, man.
Gotcha.
And if you're managing your finances and you're preparing for rainy days, which we have at the church, we prepare for rainy days, man. So we're able to ride it out a little bit further. My biggest thing, Chris, is that we have 23 employees at the church, man.
Wow. I didn't know you had that many.
23. So for me, making sure all 23 of our employees are not interrupted with a paycheck, because You talk about what keeps me up at night. I know our employees have families. I know they have responsibilities financially, and it's up to, really me being the top boss of the church to make sure that our employees can go home at night and feel good that they still are going to get a check, man. And so far, we have not had to interrupt. I haven't had to go to them and say, hey, we got to close our doors or lay people off. So in our instance, God has been good, man. And we just pray that it will continue.
Wow. I think about a rainy day. Obviously I have a rainy day thing too, but not this much rain that I had no idea. And
No, this ain't rain, man. This is full blown hurricane right now, man. this ain't no trickle of rain right now, man. And we know that the stimulus package is coming, but again, for people who work hourly wages, those are the ones that hurt me the most, because if Governor Northam were to say we have a shelter in place and we cannot work from the building. Now, we have a percentage of our staff that if we had to close, we could still work from home. But the hourly worker couldn't get paid because we can't go into the building. So, we're working very hard, man, to make sure that we can provide a means, because that the hourly employee are the ones that need the money the most.
Yeah, they run. They're like they're the engines behind the whole thing.
They are, and they they need, hourly workers need it more than, for the salaried people. Again, if you're not in the building, you can still work. But the hourly person, if you don't work, you don't get paid, man. And so we've had to be, I look at that. I that weighs on me at night, man. I want to make sure that our employees are taken care of, man.
How does your community service look? Well, not only how does it look, how has it changed, Swan? I mean, I look at you like you hands-on, man. I mean, you're feeding people out there, doing funerals. I mean, the whole gambit. How does it look? How has it changed since this whole thing came down the pipeline, Swan?
Well, for us, you know me, I'm always community minded. And so what we had to do was to look at how we do it. Again, nothing changes about the mission. The mission is still to be community based. It's the methods that have to change.
Methods, gotcha.
So it's not what we do. We always are going to do what we do. The question now is, how are we going to do it? So what we did was we partnered with Newport News Public Schools to start off. They have a feeding program. So they feed kids in the school system. And so we partnered with them. Now Ivy is a site where Newport News Public Schools comes to our church. And let me just say, nothing is in the building. They bring a school bus. They park in our parking lot. They have the meals on their school bus. So when people drive past the church, they have workers to take the meal and put it in the car, and they keep going. If somebody walks up, they give them the meal and they keep going. So nobody's in our building, right? And so in the last 2 days, we fed through our site in the last 2 days, 300 kids.
Wow.
And so we do that every day, Monday through Friday. The bus comes 11:30 to 1 o'clock and feeds kids. So today they brought 150 meals. 150 meals went out. So every day we know that. So that's that feeding program. Then we have another one because we recognize that only feeds kids, but we have homeless people that come to our church, and we have people that walk, man, from the community. We had people that come up to us today. Hey, are y'all giving out food? So we're doing a second feeding program that's going to be twice a week. This is for the homeless and for others who don't fit into the school system population. And we've even established, Chris, are you ready for this? So, DoorDash and Uber Eats, people do drivers. I'm calling it now Ivy Uber Eats, man. I put it out today where we have members of the church that are willing to come by, pick up a meal, not for themselves, but to come to the church, pick up a meal, and then take it to a senior who can't get to the church, man. And the response to that has been overwhelming. And so, again, for me, Chris, it's never the what. The what never changes. It's the how. How are we going to do it?
Wow.
What's
That's
the
deep.
methods of how we do it that has to change in this time? But what we do, we always going to be community based. You know, our mission is to love, grow, and serve.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to love people. We're going to grow in Christ. We're going to serve. So even in our church's thought process, we move everything online. We haven't changed what we do. We just do it in a different format, man. So we have Bible study online.
Okay,
we have ministry meetings online. We have church now online.
Yeah.
We have contacts and calling people through a phone tree. So we just keep doing what we do. We just doing it differently right now, man.
If somebody, I need to volunteer. I've been going getting groceries for people, but I need to probably come down there too. Swan, if somebody wanted to say, hey, I want to help volunteer, what would they do to volunteer for your mission?
Well, right now you can only volunteer to be like we said, the Ivy Uber Eats kind of thing.
I'm good with that. Yeah, that's needed.
Yeah, because we can't let anybody in the building.
Gotcha.
So there's no ministry per se in the building. Everything is outreach, which, by the way, for me, outreach is everything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So again, for the ministry that isn't community minded, you're in a different space right now, right? And for me, the gospel has always meant to be out in the world, not just in the church. And this is the greatest time, Chris, for the church to be seen, because so many people are hurting and in need. And this is a great time for the love of Christ to be shared and on display. So, you know, I'm passionate about that, man. And so we've changed some things, but now for right now, if anybody's wanting to help, that would be the only way. If you want to come and deliver a meal to one of our families or seniors.
Do you need drivers? I mean, is that something that you need? I don't even know.
Well, right now, I think we have enough, but if you want to check with me personally, man, like next week, I can tell you for sure if we need more.
I had no idea that me and my wife were talking today. Like, I could not imagine. I've heard through the news that people are depending on our school systems to feed their children during the day. You know, just kind of the concept is just kind of foreign. And once again, I'm glad I can kind of plug into you and share that this stuff is real.
So let me give you a statistic in Newport News. 90% of all students in Newport News public schools is on free or reduced lunch.
Oh, wow.
So you let that sink in for you.
Wow.
90%. So if they're not going to school to eat, then it's a high degree of likelihood they're not going to eat during the day. And so this is what we know, man. If we're not feeding kids to eat, then what else could happen? Crime could go up because I'm hungry and I need to eat. So I got to go. If I can't get it at home and I don't have money, I might have to steal it or have to rob somebody for it. Mm-hmm. So feeding people, man, is vitally important. And even if there was a shelter in place where nobody could leave their homes, we would still be doing this, man, because in a neighborhood that's already impoverished, you take away the opportunity to feed people, and now you got chaos, man.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Well, thank you for what you're doing, bro Swan. I mean, I know you're always serving. It's weird to go to church when I did the sound, man, just to see that. Just ironic.
Yeah, you were there, man, and so you could tell everybody what you saw. I mean, nobody's in the seats, man, and we're going for it like it's everybody there and nobody's there. Man. It's crazy, man.
Have you ever had? I'm just like, I've been around for a while. Is this your first time having to do something to this magnitude?
Absolutely. But what takes me back, Chris, is that when I first got started in ministry, I used to go into the sanctuary when nobody was in there and just kind of work on my sermon.
Cut your teeth in this environment.
Yeah, so this is what I mean. For me, nothing new, man.
Oh,
Yeah, and listen, man, you know how it is. When you started selling homes, when you first got started, you were alone. Nobody was around, man, right?
Nobody pushing me, nobody blowing you up. Hey, Chris, you
Nobody,
going over?
nobody knew who you were at that point, man. You was just on the grind, trying to make it, right? That's what it feels like for me now, right? It's actually taking me back to the beginning stages of ministry where
Nice.
I didn't have what I have now. So you just make it work, man.
How does it feel just to have a congregation? I mean, I know a lot of just as ministers want to move up. How does it feel to say, you know what, I've cut my teeth, I've put in my work to say, okay, now I can I think about business, right? Patrick Bet-David told me, Chris, earning money is your offense, but you got to have a defense where you manage what you have. You can't always be in earn mode. I'm thinking about running a church. Now that you have one, it's almost like that's not where you want to be. It's almost like a new beginning for someone like you.
Yeah, but what people don't realize, Chris, is that I've been in ministry, man, for 23 years,
Wow.
right? So, quick context, quick story. My wife and I, we get married in May of 97, and in June, the very next month, I do my initial sermon. So, all of our married life I've been in ministry, right? So, I've seen a lot and grown a lot, and I don't manage. Let me be clear about the managing of the money. I don't manage it alone. So we have a trustee board. We work together. I do more of casting the vision of where I see the church going, and then it's the trustees that help to allocate resources to make it happen. And just to your point, a quick testimony, about earning versus saving your money and all that kind of thing. When we first got to Ivy 14 years ago, the church was in financial difficulty.
Oh yeah.
And so over time, it has gotten to a point of where we are through managing the resources carefully. There were times, Chris, we could have moved to another building.
What?
Because the growth of the church and we could have moved, and for whatever reason, the Lord did not release us from where we are now. But check this out. Because of that, and I didn't understand it at the time, but I understand it now. Because we didn't move, we're in a building that's debt-free.
Nice.
There's no pressure on us to have to pay a mortgage and pay staff in the coronavirus epidemic, man.
That's big.
So now I don't have to constantly come to the congregation to keep saying, hey, y'all, we need money. And unfortunately, a lot of pastors are in that position. And it doesn't mean any building, where you've had to, you got a mortgage on it. That's a real issue, man, because the banks aren't going to say, God bless you. At some point, you got to pay that mortgage, man. And so it's hard to do that when nobody's coming to your building. Just like what you said with the print man, the friend that you own that owns the print company.
Yeah.
He may have a mortgage. He may have rent to pay in his building.
Does. Yeah.
And if nobody's coming in his building, that's a tough situation. And churches are no different, man.
I hear you say that debt as I get older, Swan. I look at it different. I remember when I was younger, I was like, I'll just be in debt for the rest of my life. I mean, that was my philosophy. Now I'm like, man, I'm done with debt. My houses, I'm like, man, let's try to get rid of it.
The Bible says a lot about money, man. And I know most of the time we tend to go to Malachi, well, a man robbed God and all that kind of stuff. But there's a verse in Proverbs that says that the borrower is slave to the lender.
Borrower is slave.
So just think about that, man. When you take out a loan and you become in debt to the lender, you have no control over the terms of the agreement. The lender tells you when you're going to pay it back, how much you're going to pay each month, what day of the month you're going to pay it back. And you really don't have much say in that.
Generally speaking, that's right.
The lender has all the options.
You know, my mentor used to say, Chris, when you look at a loan, don't look at it as being approved. Look at it as being enslaved. That little stamp where they stamp in your loan.
And listen, man, that the root word of a mortgage has that connotation in it, man.
Death, yeah.
Think about it. You're paying this thing off for 30 years of your life.
Yeah.
And the banks are getting money off of you while you are enslaved to this mortgage. That's of right. A place to lay your head, man. It's a crazy system, man. But that's so yes, we do need to take debt seriously. Now, having said that, there is good debt versus bad debt. Owning a home is very important, but debt like cars and things where cars depreciate in value, and credit card debt, you know, you buy a pair of shoes and you don't pay it off 6 months. You don't pay double for the shoes now for the interest rate.
God,
that kind of debt kills you.
Mm-hmm. It'll kill you, bro. I think we learned that with time, though. You think, I just make the minimum payment. You just get killed. You get killed.
Yeah, because now the law tells you, they made it a law. The government made it where they have to tell you if you make a minimum payment, this is how long it's going to take you to pay off your balance, man. If you look at it, sometimes it's 8 or 9, 10 years.
It's sick, right?
And you bought a pizza for $15, man, and you add it to whatever else you bought. It's going to take you 10 years to pay that pizza off, man. It's crazy, man.
I'm glad you guys have done that debt, man. I cannot tell you how I preach it on my channel. I pay extra on my principal. I'm begging people. It doesn't have to be a lot. If you just get that muscle, just paying a little bit here and there, man, it will work wonders.
And when we got to the church was in debt. The Family Life Center where we worship, there was a mortgage on it. And when we paid that off, man, again, that frees you up to do other things, man. And so I know as a pastor, one of the reasons why even in this time, I can still sleep good at night is because the church is debt free, man.
Nobody coming after you. Feels good, doesn't it? Nobody after you.
Sleep good at night, man.
Let me get back here. I'll let you go. Got a few more minutes. I want to talk about, I'm thinking about just Easter, Pastor. What are you thinking? I mean, it's just a big deal. I'm thinking about how much do churches say, okay, well, we depend on this service to we'll be here after that. I mean, such a big deal on Easter and Mother's Day. I mean, they're right back to back.
Yeah, so we called certain members of the congregation CME members, which is Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. Right. We know that those traditionally are the 3 biggest Sundays that we're going to see people.
2 of them right here.
2 of them back to back. And if you've been with us for a while, we typically do Easter off-site at a much larger venue. So last year we went back to where we first started, which was Heritage High School Auditorium. We did 2 services and we had 2,000 people, man. Mm-hmm. So
good crowd. They've
already called us and said, hey, we can't accommodate you this year.
They called you recently, or this was from they couldn't accommodate you from before? They're saying
no, they called us last week and said, hey, because of the coronavirus, we can't let you in the building.
So that's done.
So Heritage is already done.
Okay.
So now it's a question of, will we be able to do a worship service?
Period.
If we do, it's going to be at our church. So again, as I told you before, in all honesty, if you were to ask me today, I would tell you I'm not yet confident that we'll be able to do a worship service.
Yeah, me neither, brother.
Person.
I don't know. Yeah.
So we're still looking at an online format, man, and that's going to be completely weird. On the biggest, what I call Easter is really the Super Bowl Sunday for the church, where you won't have anybody in the building, man. It's still a strange feeling to think that, but I'm preparing in my mind that that's what it's going to look like. Now, to your point about the offering. So yes, typically the offering is one of our larger offering Sundays, but the flip side to that, Chris, is it's also one of our bigger expense Sundays.
Okay.
Because you're moving off site, you got to bring in equipment, you got to do different things, right?
Expenses.
So the theory is, if we're not doing it at Heritage, it may be less income, but it's also less expenses that we have.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
for you, you're saying might be okay, but just for the, I'm thinking how many churches out there. Well, for me, right? I'm thinking about a business. They depend on tax returns. They're like, okay, we know tax returns are coming here. I'm thinking in my mind, the church, no doubt, they're saying Mother's Day, Easter. You know, I'm not trying to drive the finances. I don't want to beat it, but I'm saying it's business, and we all, no doubt, everybody has to consider that they at least they take it into consideration.
We do everything. I mean, yes, but here's the challenge, man. If I can be completely honest with you, the challenge of churches sometimes is the fact that most the stereotype, and when you look on social media, what unbelievers talk, all the churches want to talk about is money, right? And there is some truth in that because it takes resources to make a church work. But we would appear to be insensitive also if all we talked about right now was money, because so many people are hurting. So it's a fine line that you're walking here, man. So for me, I don't look at revenue as much as I look at income to expenses.
Okay. Balance sheet, basically. It's a balance sheet.
Exactly. So if I'm looking at our year, the first thing I look at is not necessarily how much did we take in. I look at, did what we take in exceed what we paid out?
Gotcha.
And if our income has exceeded our expenses, then we're in trouble. But even if our income is lower, but our expenses are lower, then we're still pretty good, man.
I see. Well, from your experience, you know pastors around the country. Are they prepared for this Easter thing? I mean, I guess, is the church community, are our spiritual leaders prepared to kind of weather this thing? Even, you know, because I've got an Airbnb, right? Brother, all my Hampton University graduate, you know, everybody's canceled. Nobody's coming in town, Brother Swan. For the general churches, have you talked to your friends? Are you guys? I mean, no doubt you have friends that you guys talk about the future and services coming up. Are they prepared to weather that?
The challenge, Chris, is that most pastors that I've talked to haven't even thought about Easter, because the reason why is because this is such a fluid situation, man. Right? So say, for example, right now, again, we're limited to 10 people. Tomorrow, the governor could say, stay at home and shelter in place.
Oh, wow.
And we would not be able to go in at all.
So you're that's what you meant by that. So we wouldn't even be able to do the service. You wouldn't even be able to do any online service.
If they say shelter in place, we could not go into the building at all.
Oh, man.
Except to do the feedings that we're doing. Gotcha. Which is not even in the building, is outside.
I didn't know that, bro.
So now, you know, we're already on plan B with this. I'm thinking plan C. I'm thinking, what would happen tomorrow for Sunday, this Sunday, if the governor said shelter in place?
I see what you're saying.
So it's kind of hard to think long term when any day it could change, man.
Good Lord. That's deep, man. I didn't know idea. Yeah, this is.
So when the Lord's Prayer said, "Give us this day our daily bread," that's where we are, bro. Just deal with the day, man.
I guess I'm so used to trying to. My brother taught me forecasting. You got to, because I didn't have the skill as a younger man. I'm thinking long term, 30-year mortgages, that type of thinking. But so talking.
So I will say this, man. There are two schools of thought amongst the pastors. Some pastors are, and you see this across the country, man, are strictly on, I'm trusting God, and I'm going to keep my building open until the law comes in and shuts me down.
Wow.
There was a pastor in Louisiana who had a church service Sunday, planned to have one yesterday, over 1,000 people. that's in the building.
Wow.
So his mindset is, I trust God will heal, but that's a serious health risk.
Yeah,
So you
man.
do have some now you have some pastors who obviously don't have a membership that large, may already have a membership that's smaller, that decides to say, I'm just going to trust God and open my building, and whoever comes, I'm going to trust God for healing and nobody will be sick. And then you have other pastors who, like us, have looked at the intersection of faith and wisdom, right? Where does it lie here? And for us, it is, let's keep people out of the building. And what you're seeing, Chris, now on social media is believers kind of attacking each other, right? So for those who believe that the building should stay open and the churches are wrong for closing, they're coming at the people who are closing. And for the
Gotcha.
people who do close, they're going at the people who stay open. And that to me, more than anything else, is hurting the collective churches, because we all should be supporting each other, praying for each other. Whatever decision you make,
Yeah.
we should be presenting ourselves better. So to that end, you asked about Easter. There are going to be some pastors that's going to say, you know what, it's Easter Sunday and we need to be open. I know what the governor said, but there are going to be some who are going to have a worship service.
Okay. Wow.
I can't tell you what we're going to do because I'm not at that point yet.
Mm-hmm.
We will continue to go week by week, is what I've been saying all along. And we'll trust God, and where faith and wisdom intersect, that's where we'll be.
Gotcha. Wow. I didn't know if it was on your mind. It's been on my mind. I'm like, what is, because we have to try to plan for family. I mean, I don't know.
But I would tell you, man, beyond Easter, here's what breaks your heart. What people aren't really talking about is weddings and funerals, man.
Oh,
So Chris, we're at the point now we can't do a funeral even in our building, man. We can't do a repast. We can't feed families after the service in our building, man.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people are doing graveside only. So you're not even doing a funeral service at all. You go straight to the cemetery, man.
Wow.
So it's more than just a church service, man. How do you serve families like a wedding? Can you imagine, man, if you and your wife were planning a wedding a year out, 2 years out, and now the venue says we can't do your wedding, and the DJ says I can't do your wedding, and the videographer says I can't do your. Can you imagine that kind of stress, man? Mm-hmm. And that is literally happening to people who are weddings, funerals, just things that we take for granted, man. It's impacting a lot of people, man.
Wow. I would not want to see that bride, my brother.
Man,
I had not thought about that.
And I was because the wedding is for the bride, man, and she's dreamed of walking down the aisle, and the place is full. But now imagine you can't do that. So do you still get married? Do you go to the justice of the peace, or do you delay your wedding and have a big one? These are the decisions that couples are having to make, man.
That's crazy, man. I didn't think about that. I had not even thought about that. Swan.
Yeah. So
I guess we're coming up on wedding season. I mean, April and May. I know I got married in May.
So did I. So it's huge. It's huge wedding season. And then, my heart breaks for high school seniors, man, that school has been canceled for the rest of the year. So these kids can't go to a prom their senior year. They won't even have a graduation, man. Imagine that, man. So it's more than just the church feeling this, man. It's anxiety, it's sadness, it's depression, it's frustration for a lot of people, man.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, Brother Swan, thank you so much for your time. We got 40 minutes on here, my friend. Anything else you want to leave my viewers before we cut out of here? Maybe you can give us some good news and some good word to probably just hold us over while we're in this quarantine, perhaps.
Yeah, Chris, thank you again, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. And I just want to go back to the theme of our church for the year. When we started the year, our theme is faith over fear. Psalm 56:3 says that when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. And that is what we should be holding on to in this time. We can't control the virus spreading. We can't control how many more cases of people get it. The only thing that we can do is trust God and not be afraid of what we see and hear. And so, this season really defines for us, who do we trust? Who do we turn to in moments of difficulty? Who do we go to when we really need something? And what we see is that the things that we find ourselves chasing every day can't help us in times like this. The clothes that we wear, the places where we live, where we drive, the things that we tend to value the most, none of that stuff can help us right now. And so it is a reminder that in critical times, in crisis times, you need to know where to go to find help and strength. And for me and for you, Chris, we turn to the Lord, man. And the scriptures tell us he'll give us perfect peace if our mind is stayed on him. So I just want to encourage all of your followers, man. This is a great time to develop your relationship with God, not necessarily about church per se, but just trusting God to sustain you in moments of uncertainty.
Man, this is something. You open my mind up to a lot of stuff. I think you mentioned the other day, as the spirit is moving on the planet, wiping out NBA. I mean, it's just like in a second, how much money was just wiped out, how much opportunity, things that we think matter.
And that's the thing about this, man, that think about how many things have been disrupted. Like, it would have been all right for me to say, hey, you got to stay in the house if the NBA was still going on, right? Because then I would have a game to watch every night, right? I watch ESPN I haven't watched ESPN, man, since this whole thing went down. What is that?
You heard? Yeah, you heard. You're a sports guy,
man. I'm crushed over here. So again, but what it does do, Chris, is that crises always presents new opportunities, man.
Yeah.
And so instead of me focusing on the crises, I'm really looking at what other opportunities are there for the church, are there for me personally, there for my family. Now I have time that I did not have before. I can pause for a moment and really reflect on, what am I going after? What am I chasing? What's most important to me? These are critical questions that you can ask because you got time to do it.
What's important?
What's important, man?
I'll leave on that one. Roundup family, we got Pastor Swan. Thanks for joining. If you got any questions, I don't see any cute questions over here. Thank you, my friend. Subscribe to the channel, Roundup. Like this content if anything Pastor Swan has said has resonated with you as it does for me all the time. And comment. I'd like to know. Tell us about what's going on in your communities. What are you seeing with the churches in your area? What are you seeing with your leaders? What are they saying regarding the services and how they are contributing to your communities? I know this man, he walks the walk. So, okay, bro, Swan, that's all I got.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, man. And just, I want to end with what you asked me in the beginning, how a church is doing. I think most churches are doing like most businesses. Some churches are doing okay. Some churches are surviving. Some churches are struggling. I don't think we're any different than any other business or any other sector that's out there. But our hope is not in the coronavirus. It's not in our stimulus package. Our hope is in God that things will turn around, man. So thank you again for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Roundup. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.